Chosen one, have you ever wondered why some people walk away from your life, yet years later they still cannot forget you? They try to replace the peace they felt with you, but nothing ever feels the same. They smile on the outside, but deep inside, something keeps reminding them of the kindness, sincerity, and faith they experienced in your presence. In Islam, Allah teaches us that genuine character leaves a mark on the hearts of people, even if they deny it for a time. Sometimes, the greatest proof of your value is not what people say when they leave, but what they realize after they lose you. In today's video, we'll uncover 6 powerful lessons from the Quran, the lives of the prophets, and Islamic wisdom that explain why some hearts can never forget the way you made them feel. Stay with me until the end, because the final lesson may completely change the way you understand the people who disappeared from your life and why Allah allowed it to happen. A truth that many people fail to understand until much later in life, when someone experiences genuine kindness, sincerity, and mercy from a believer who lives for the sake of Allah. That feeling leaves a mark that time cannot erase. Chosen one, perhaps you wondered why certain people kept returning in their thoughts even after they walked away from you. Maybe they tried to convince themselves that they had moved on. They buried themselves in work, surrounded themselves with different people, and searched for distractions, yet something inside them remained unsettled. Islam teaches us that hearts are in the control of Allah alone. No one can force love or erase it whenever they choose. Allah places affection where He wills and removes it when He wills. If your character reflected honesty, patience, forgiveness, and compassion because you sought the pleasure of Allah rather than the praise of people, then you became a reminder of goodness in their life. They may not have appreciated it when it was in front of them, but after losing it, comparison became unavoidable. They met people who spoke beautifully but carried selfish intentions. They experienced relationships built on appearance instead of sincerity. Slowly, they realized that what they once considered ordinary was actually rare. The peace they felt around you was not simply because of your personality, it was because a heart connected to Allah naturally brings tranquility to those around it. This is why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that the best among people are those who benefit others. Your value was never measured by how loudly people praised you while you were present. Often, people only recognize a blessing after it has disappeared. That realization becomes a lesson written deep within their hearts. Chosen one, never regret showing kindness simply because someone failed to appreciate it at the time. Allah records every sincere intention, every act of patience, and every moment you chose mercy over revenge. Sometimes Allah allows people to lose what was good for them so they can finally understand its worth. Their inability to forget how you made them feel is not about worldly attachment alone. It is the echo of a soul that experienced sincerity and then searched everywhere else without finding it again. Continue protecting your heart. Continue seeking Allah's pleasure, and never lower your character to match the behavior of those who misunderstood you. The love, peace, and respect that come from living according to Islam leave footprints on hearts that even years of distance cannot completely erase. That is one of Allah's subtle signs that goodness always leaves a lasting legacy, even when appreciation arrives long after the moment has passed. Chosen one, there may have been a time when they took your presence for granted. They assumed your patience would always remain, your prayers for them would never stop, and your sincere concern would always be available whenever they needed it. Because blessings are often silent, they failed to notice what Allah had placed in front of them. But Allah has a way of opening hearts through distance. When you were no longer there to encourage them, to listen without judgment, to forgive their mistakes, or to remind them of Allah with your character, they slowly began to feel an emptiness they could not explain. They searched for the same comfort in other people, yet every relationship seemed to lack something. They found conversations without sincerity, attention without loyalty, and affection without peace. It was then that they understood the difference between someone who merely exists in your life and someone whose presence is a mercy from Allah. The Quran repeatedly reminds believers to reflect upon the blessings of their Lord before they disappear, because gratitude often comes too late for those who ignore His favors. Chosen one, your greatest impact was never your appearance, your words, or your achievements. It was the peace that Allah allowed your character to bring into the lives of others. That peace cannot be manufactured, purchased, or imitated. It is a gift that Allah grants to hearts that strive for sincerity and righteousness. So when they finally realized why they could never forget the way you made them feel, it was because they were no longer comparing you to who you used to be. They were comparing everyone else to the standard of honesty, compassion, and faith they once experienced through you. Allah allowed the separation not to punish you, but to reveal the truth that could not be seen while familiarity covered their eyes. Never believe that your goodness was wasted simply because it was overlooked. In Islam, no sincere act is ever lost. Allah preserves every kindness, every sacrifice, and every tear shed for His sake. Sometimes He even uses your absence as the lesson that changes another person's heart forever. Whether they return or never return is in Allah's hands, but the realization they carry will remain. What they lost was never ordinary. It was a blessing sent by Allah, and only after it was gone did they finally understand why no amount of time could erase the feeling your sincere heart left inside theirs. Chosen one of the greatest signs of Allah's wisdom is that memories are not stored only in the mind, they are carried deep within the heart. A person may stop seeing your face, stop hearing your voice, and even spend years without speaking your name, yet the feeling your sincerity created inside them can remain alive, because Allah allows certain experiences to become lessons that time cannot erase. This is why some people are surprised when, after months or even years, they suddenly remember someone they thought they had forgotten. It is not always because they miss the person. Sometimes it is because Allah is reminding them of a blessing they once failed to appreciate. They remember how safe they felt around you, how your words encouraged them when they were weak, how your patience calmed their anger, and how your presence brought peace instead of confusion. At the time, they thought those moments were ordinary, but after experiencing disappointment from others, they finally understood that what they had with you was different. They searched for the same honesty in new friendships, for the same loyalty in new relationships, and for the same peace in different places, but every comparison quietly led back to you. They could imitate conversations, replace routines, and fill their days with distractions, yet they could never replace the feeling that Allah allowed your character to leave in their heart. Islam teaches that a believer's true beauty is found in faith, sincerity, and noble character. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, reminded us that the heaviest thing on the scale on the Day of Judgment will be good character. That means every act of patience, every time you forgave instead of seeking revenge, every sincere smile, every gentle word, and every moment you chose mercy over pride carried a value far greater than you could see. Those actions did not simply earn rewards with Allah, they also planted seeds in the hearts of people around you. Some seeds bloom immediately, while others bloom only after years of regret. Chosen one, do not become discouraged if people recognized your worth only after losing access to your kindness. Allah often allows delayed realization because it teaches lessons that immediate appreciation never could. Their heart now reminds them of what their ego once ignored. They finally understand that you were never trying to control them, compete with them, or prove yourself better than them. You simply treated them with the character that Islam teaches, expecting your reward from Allah alone. That is why they cannot forget the way you made them feel. It was not luxury, popularity, or worldly success that touched them. It was sincerity. And sincerity leaves fingerprints that cannot be washed away by time, even if they never admit it publicly, even if pride prevents them from apologizing, and even if life takes both of you in completely different directions. There will always be quiet moments when Allah causes them to remember the peace they lost. Every disappointment they experience becomes another reminder of the blessing they once overlooked. Every betrayal they face makes them remember your loyalty. Every harsh word spoken to them reminds them of your gentleness. Every relationship built on selfishness reminds them of the selflessness they once received from you. This is not because you were perfect, for only Allah is perfect, but because you sincerely tried to live according to His guidance. Chosen one, never measure your value by who stayed or who left. Measure it by whether your character pleased Allah. If your kindness was sincere, your patience was for His sake, and your love was rooted in faith rather than ego, then your impact has already become something that no distance, no silence, and no passing years can completely erase. The world teaches people to remember faces, achievements, and possessions, but Allah teaches hearts to remember sincerity. That is why, long after your footsteps have faded, the feeling you left behind continues to speak in a language only the heart can understand, reminding them that some people are not unforgettable because of what they owned, but because of how they reflected the mercy, compassion, and light that Allah places within His sincere servants. Chosen one, there comes a moment in many people's lives when Allah removes the noise, the excitement, and the distractions that once occupied their hearts, leaving them alone with their own thoughts. It is often in those quiet moments that they begin to understand why they could never truly forget the way you made them feel. At first, they may have believed it was simply attachment or emotion, but as time passed, they discovered it was something much deeper. They met many people who could make them laugh, impress them with wealth, charm them with beautiful words, or entertain them for a while, yet none of those encounters gave them the same sense of peace they once experienced around you. Slowly, Allah opened their eyes to a reality they had overlooked. The comfort they felt was never built upon worldly attraction alone. It came from being close to someone whose heart was striving to remain connected to Allah. A believer who sincerely remembers Allah carries a different kind of presence. Without realizing it, they spread patience instead of panic, hope instead of despair, and mercy instead of harshness. This is why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, encouraged believers to keep the company of righteous people, because the character of those around you shapes the condition of your own heart. Chosen one, perhaps you never noticed how often you reminded people to trust Allah during difficult times, how your words calmed fears instead of increasing them, or how your actions reflected honesty when deception had become common. You may have thought these were small things, but Allah made them a source of light in someone else's life. When that light was no longer present, they felt the darkness more clearly than ever before. They searched for the same reassurance in conversations that lacked sincerity, in relationships that revolved around personal gain, and in people who spoke about loyalty but disappeared when hardship arrived. Every disappointment became another lesson from Allah, teaching them that not every smile carries mercy, not every kind word comes from sincerity, and not every relationship is a blessing. They finally realized that what made you unforgettable was not perfection, because no human being is perfect, but the way your faith influenced your character. You chose forgiveness when revenge seemed easier. You remained truthful when lies would have benefited you. You prayed for people who hurt you instead of wishing for their downfall. Those choices left an impression far greater than you ever imagined. Chosen one, never think that living according to Islamic values goes unnoticed simply because people fail to thank you. Allah allows the effects of sincere character to remain long after conversations have ended and relationships have changed. Sometimes people must lose access to someone whose heart was filled with faith before they recognize the difference between temporary excitement and lasting peace. They eventually understand that attraction fades, beauty changes, and worldly success comes and goes. But a heart illuminated by remembrance of Allah leaves behind a tranquility that no material possession can replace. Even if pride prevents them from admitting it, deep inside, they know why every comparison leads back to you. It is because they were never searching for another face. They were searching for the feeling of safety, sincerity, and nearness to Allah that your presence quietly inspired. And that is one of the greatest honors Allah can give a believer, to leave behind not an image that people admire, but a reminder that brings hearts closer to their Creator whenever they remember the way you made them feel. Chosen one of the most beautiful realities in Islam is that Allah does not measure people by their appearance, wealth, popularity, or status. He looks at their hearts and their deeds. This is why a sincere believer can leave a greater impact on someone's life than a person who possesses every worldly advantage. Perhaps there was a time when they believed forgetting you would be easy. They convinced themselves that time would erase every memory, that meeting new people would replace the connection they once shared with you, and that moving forward meant leaving everything behind. But Allah had written a different lesson for them. The more they searched for the feeling they once had, the more they realized it could not be recreated. They encountered people who were attractive but lacked honesty, successful but lacked humility, entertaining but lacked compassion, and present during easy times but absent during hardship. Each experience quietly reminded them of the qualities they once overlooked in you. They began to understand that your greatest gift was never something they could hold in their hands. It was the peace your faith produced, the sincerity behind your intentions, and the mercy reflected in your character. You listened without making others feel small. You forgave without constantly reminding people of their mistakes. You gave advice without seeking control. You cared without expecting recognition. These are not ordinary qualities. They are signs of a heart that is trying to please Allah before pleasing people. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that Allah is gentle and loves gentleness in all matters. When a believer lives with that gentleness, it becomes a source of comfort for everyone around them. Chosen one, you may never fully know how many silent battles your kindness helped someone survive. A single encouraging word, a sincere dua, a patient response during an argument, or a moment of forgiveness may have become a turning point in another person's life without your knowledge. Allah often hides the results of our good deeds because our reward is with Him first. But sometimes He allows people to realize their value only after they have lost access to it. Their regret is not meant to inflate your ego. It is meant to humble them and remind them that blessings should never be taken lightly. They now understand that what they miss is not simply your company, but the feeling of peace that surrounded your presence. In a world filled with competition, betrayal, and selfishness, your sincerity became something rare. They cannot forget how respected they felt when you spoke to them, how understood they felt when others judged them, or how hope returned to their heart after conversations that reminded them to trust Allah instead of fearing the future. These memories remain because sincerity leaves marks that time cannot erase. Chosen one, never become bitter because someone appreciated your worth too late. Allah sees every sacrifice that no one thanked you for, every prayer you whispered for people who never knew you prayed for them, every tear you hid while asking Allah to guide those who misunderstood you, and every moment you chose patience when your heart wanted justice immediately. Nothing given for the sake of Allah is ever wasted. Even if people forget your name, Allah never forgets your deeds. And if He allows someone to remember you years later with respect, gratitude, or regret, it is only because He wants them to understand that the greatest blessings in life are not the loudest or the most glamorous. They are the sincere souls whose love, honesty, and faith quietly draw hearts closer to Allah. That is why they could never truly forget the way you made them feel inside. It was never just an emotion that faded with time. It was a reflection of the light that Allah places in hearts devoted to Him, and no matter how far life carries them, that light continues to illuminate their memories, reminding them that some blessings are so precious they can only be fully understood after they are gone. Chosen one, the final lesson is perhaps the most important of all. The reason they could never truly forget the way you made them feel was never because you were flawless, extraordinary, or free from mistakes. Every human being falls short, and perfection belongs to Allah alone. What made you different was that your heart was striving toward your Creator, and that pursuit naturally influenced the way you treated His creation. Long after conversations ended and paths separated, they discovered that the peace they remembered was not created by worldly attraction, but by the light of faith reflected in your character. Allah tells us in the Quran that the believing men and believing women are allies of one another. They encourage what is right and discourage what is wrong. A believer's greatest influence is not in making people admire them, but in making people remember Allah. Perhaps while you were in their life, you reminded them to pray when they became careless, encouraged patience when they felt like giving up, spoke words of hope when they were drowning in anxiety, or forgave them when they expected anger. At that time, they may have thought these moments were ordinary, but after they were gone, they realized how rare they truly were. They met people who could offer excitement, but not peace, attention, but not sincerity, promises, but not loyalty, and affection, but not faith. The more they experienced the emptiness of relationships built only upon worldly desires, the more they understood why your presence felt different. It was because your heart was trying to please Allah before pleasing people. Chosen one, never underestimate the impact of living according to Islamic values in a world that often celebrates the opposite. Every time you chose honesty over deception, humility over arrogance, patience over anger, and forgiveness over revenge, you were planting seeds that Allah could make grow long after you had walked away. Many people never realize the value of righteous character until they lose the person who displayed it. Allah sometimes allows separation so that hidden truths become impossible to ignore. Their inability to forget you is not meant to become a source of pride for you, but a reminder that sincere faith always leaves traces. Your responsibility was never to make people stay. Your responsibility was to represent Islam with sincerity and leave the results to Allah. If someone finally understands your worth after years of distance, then that realization belongs to Allah's perfect plan, not your efforts alone. Whether they return, apologize, or remain silent is no longer the most important part of the story. The real victory is that your character became a reminder of goodness, and goodness never disappears from the scales of Allah. On the day of judgment, it will not matter how many people admired you or how many praised your name. What will matter is whether your words, actions, and intentions were accepted by the One who knows every hidden thought within your heart. Chosen one, continue walking the path of sincerity, even if few people understand it today. Continue showing mercy when the world rewards cruelty. Continue speaking truth when falsehood seems easier. Continue trusting Allah when others depend only on themselves. And continue loving for the sake of Allah rather than for recognition. The people who could never forget the way you made them feel are simply witnessing one of Allah's timeless realities. When a servant sincerely carries faith, humility, and compassion in their heart, they leave behind more than memories. They leave behind a legacy that quietly calls other hearts back to their Lord. And there is no greater honor in this world than to be remembered not because you made people think more about you, but because your character inspired them to think more about Allah. Conclusion. If there is one message to take from these 6 powerful lessons, it is this: never underestimate the value of a sincere heart that lives for the sake of Allah. The world often celebrates appearance, popularity, and temporary success, but Allah values faith, sincerity, patience, and righteous character. If someone could never forget the way you made them feel, let it not be because of worldly attachment, but because your words, your kindness, and your actions reminded them of the mercy of Allah. Continue being honest, even when others choose deception. Continue forgiving, even when your heart has been wounded. Continue making dua for those who misunderstand you, because every act done sincerely for Allah is recorded and never wasted. Some people may recognize your worth immediately, while others may only understand it after years have passed. Leave that to Allah. Your duty is not to control people's hearts, but to keep your own heart pure and connected to your Creator. Remember, the greatest success is not being unforgettable in the eyes of people. It is being remembered with mercy by Allah on the Day of Judgment. May Allah fill our hearts with sincerity, grant us noble character, make us among those who spread peace wherever they go, forgive our shortcomings, and reunite us in Jannatul Firdaus with the prophets, the truthful, the martyrs, and the righteous. Ameen.